We continue now at the top of Daf Kuf Amar Aleph and Meseches Bava Kamma. This is Baba Kamma Daf 101a. On the previous Amud, the Mishnah said that you have a case where a person dyes the wool, but he doesn't do a good job in dyeing the wool, and the Gemara wanted to know what exactly does that mean. And the Gemara now says, Kafra Dude means to say that he uses the sediment of the dye that is in the cauldron. Rashi explains, Kafra Dude, Kinech Boes Hayora, Kolomar B'shirei Tzeva, meaning to say, he wipes the sides of the cauldron, whatever is the remnants of that dye, Shenishtairu B'yora, that remained in the cauldron. Tzavo, that's what he uses to do the dyeing, and that's why he does an inferior job in terms of dyeing the wool. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Hanosein eitzim l'chorash lasos mehan kisei. If somebody gives wood to a carpenter to make a chair, v'asa mehan safsel, and instead he makes a bench, safsel v'asa mehan kisei, or he gives them the wood in order to make a bench, and instead he makes a chair. Rabbi Meir Omer nosein lo demei eitzav. Rabbi Meir says he has to pay him the value of the wood. Again, this is a case where he's kone b'shinoi. Rashi explains, nosein lo demei eitzav dekaninu b'shinoi. He's kone that wood because he changed from what the instructions were. And so in such a situation, again, he just pays him for the wood, and he keeps whatever it is that he fashioned. Rabbi Yehuda says, if the amount of improvement of the wood when he fashioned it into this item is more than what was spent, so he always gives the lesser amount. No sin loas hayetzia, so then the buyer gives him just what he spent. And if the amount he spent is more than the improvement, so no sin loas hashevach, so then he gives him the improvement again. The buyer always has the upper hand in this case. And the Brisa continues, Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Meir admits, if a person gives wood to a carpenter to make a nice chair, and he makes a chair that's not nice, he gives him the wood in order to make a nice bench, but he makes a bench that is not nice. So in that situation already, that's not enough of a shinoi to say shinoi kona. Rather, in that case, we say the buyer has the upper hand. If the amount of improvement is more than what is spent, the buyer just has to give him whatever he spent. And if what he spent is more than the improvement, then he gives him the value of the improvement. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. They had the following question. If somebody dyes wool, is it considered that the improvement of the dye is on the wool? That's considered substantive. It's considered to be its own independent entity, meaning to say the dye itself. Or do we say that the improvement that the dye gives to the wool, that is not considered to be substantial, and therefore it's as if the dye has disappeared essentially, and we say that we now have here a fabric of wool that's a certain color, but the dye is no longer. Rashi explains the question, Yesh Shavach Kilomar means to say, Chazusa Milsi Olav Milsa. Do we say that the fact that there's a change in the appearance, is that considered to be something substantial, as if the dye is still present, or do we say that is not considered substantial, and it's as if the dye is no longer? And the Gemara now clarifies what exactly is the case where this question makes a difference. Hey Chidami, what exactly is the case? Ilema de Gazal Samon, and if the case is that he stole pigment, meaning the raw materials to make the dye, Vidakinu Vitarinu, he then ground them up and he soaked them, meaning to say that he soaked them in water in the normal way that you make dye, Vitsava Behen, and then he used this stolen dye now in order to dye wool. And the question over here is, what happens in terms of returning what he stole? As Rashi says, V'tzava behen semer shalom mi boilon, yeshevach samonim alat semer dechazusa milsi. In other words, he took this pigment that he stole, he turned it into dye, he dyed his own wool. And so the question now is, do we say chazusa milsa, v'yamar le havli samanoi deshakaltinu, and then the person can say, give me what was taken, k'deboy lememer lekamon, as we're going to explain later on. So if you're going to say that that is the situation, again, that he stole these samonim, he ground them up, he soaked them, he turned them into a dye, and he attached it to his own wool, so that's obvious what the halach is. In that case, it's obvious because there's a kinyan shinoi. He actually took the pigments, he ground everything up, he soaked it. Clearly, he changed it substantially, and therefore, if he changed it substantially, he now owes the value of what he stole. It really is irrelevant whether the dye is no longer or it isn't. It makes no difference. There was a shinoi here, and so that can't be the case. That can't be what we're asking in terms of the halachic nafkamina. So the Gemara says, "Lo no tzricha." The case is necessary as follows: the gazal samonin sharuyin v'tzavabuhu. What he stole was already dye, meaning to say the pigments were already ground up. It was already turned into dye, and therefore at that point in time he stole it, and then he used it for his own wool. That already there's no shinoi, so there's a question. So what's the halacha? Yeshavach samonin al gabet semer. Do we say that the improvement of the dye is there? It's present on the wool. It's as if the item is still present in front of us. So then the person can say to him, Havli samonoi, the shakal tinu, give me back those dyes that you took. Odilmo, or maybe we say, Ein Shevach Samonin al Gabi Hatzemer, the improvement of the dye is no longer on the wool, it's as if it disappeared. And the way the Gemara now says it is, Da'amar lei les lach gaboy velo midi. The person can actually say, what I have by me, nothing of yours is by me anymore. That item has totally disappeared, and therefore I owe you nothing. And the Gemara immediately questions this. Amri, they said as follows: V'ein shevach samonin al gabe tzemer. Even if you're going to say that the improvement of the dye is not considered to be substantial on the wool, it's as if the item is gone. But mi motzi amrle, but could he really say to him, leslach gaboy v'lo midi, that I don't have anything of yours by me? That doesn't make any sense. Neimole havli samanoi dafsa detinu. He should say to him, give me those dyes which you made me lose. You essentially took it away. You certainly owe me something. So it can't be that that's the question. He certainly would owe him for the dye that was taken regardless. And so the Gemara says, Elo lahachgi, so rather the question is in the following direction. Ein shevach samonin al gabi hatzemer. We could say that the improvement of the dye is not considered to be present on the wool, uboy shalumele, in which case he has to pay him, he has to give him money for what he stole. Odilmor, maybe we say, Yesh shevach samonin al gabi tzemer, it is considered substantial, the improvement of the dye on the wool. V'omar lein, he says to him, hamanchi kamach, here it is in front of you, shaklinu, you should just take back your dye. But the Gemara again questions this. Shaklinu, he should take it, but my shakle, how could he take back the dye without taking the wool? So Gemara says, but tzafon, you're going to say that it's with tzafon, with a detergent. Tzafon ivure me'avru, all that's going to happen is the detergent is going to make it totally disappear. Hashavalo avid, that's not considered to be returning it, so that wouldn't make sense either. And so the Gemara instead says as follows, Elohacha b'mayaskin, and here rather what is the case? Kagon de gozal tzemer v'samon in dechad, what happened was he stole the wool and the dye, it all belonged to the same person. And then the Gemara says, V'tzavei lahu tzemer, then he used that dye to dye that particular wool, again, stolen all from the same person, B'hanach samonin, with that very same dye, V'kama hadrele nehile, and now he wants to return it, he wants to do hashav of what he stole, so he's returning latzemer, he's returning the wool that is now dyed to the original owner, and so that's the question of the Gemara, Yeshavach samonin agabe hatzemer, do we say that the improvement of the dye on the wool is significant, V'kama hadrele samonin v'tzemer, and he's doing a good hashav over here, he's returning to him both the dye and the wool. Odilmor, maybe Ein Shavach Samonin al Gabe Tzemer, the improvement of the dye on the wool is not considered substantial. V'tzemer mahadrele, and right now he is returning the wool. Samonin lo mahadrele, but he's not really returning the dye, so he still essentially owes him for the samonim. But the Gemara continues, Amri, they say to that, but even if you're going to say that when he returns the dyed wool, it's as if he's returning wool and not the dye, but still what he is returning is more expensive than just regular wool. It's dyed wool. It has went up in value, and so that increase in value, that ayakar le nehila b'tzmei, essentially covers the value of the dye which he stole, so it shouldn't matter anyway, whether he's returning the dye or not. And the Gemara says to that, lo no tzrich, it's necessary to zol tziva, the cases where the cost of dye has depreciated, so essentially this dyed wool is not worth as much as it used to be, and it actually is not enough to cover the value of the dye which he stole. And if you want, I could say another answer, kagon shetzava b'hu kofa, the case can be not where he dyed wool, but he actually dyed the hair of a monkey. And Rashi explains, the Zol Tziva, the dye has depreciated, Semar Tzavua Huzal Ba'ola, meaning wool that was dyed has actually depreciated, its price is lower, Ve'in Magian Shavach Lidmei Samonim, and so therefore the increase in terms of its value actually isn't enough to cover the value of the Samonim which were stolen. V'yamar Le Nigzel, so the Nigzel says, the one who was stolen from says, Ani ha'isi mocher Samonim, o ha'isi tzovei beged, I could have sold the Samonim, or I could have dyed a garment, V'yachshav hifsidetani, so now what you've done is you've made me lose, Tahalo ishbichu b'tzemer, because the increase in value is actually not enough to cover what I could have sold with that dye. I could have sold that dye and gotten more money. Inami detzava bukofu, or you could say the case is not where he dyed wool, but he actually dyed a monkey, means to say as follows, Gazal kof v'samonim. The case might be as follows. He stole a monkey and dye, v'tzava esakof, and now he dyed the monkey, umachziro lo, and he returned it. The point over here is, de lo ayakerle, there's no increase in value of the monkey, obviously, and so there's no increase in value to cover the dye which he stole, so that's the question. Is it considered like he's returning the dye, in which case the gazlan is fine, or is it considered that he's just returning the monkey, the dye is considered gone, and now he still owes for the value of the dye? And the Gemara continues, Ravina says, Hachab mayaskin, and here what is the case, meaning the question that we're asking of whether the dye is considered to be present or not considered to be present, what is that question relevant to? It's relevant to the following case. The case is that the wool that was taken belonged to one person, and the dye belonged to a different person, And then a monkey came along and dyed the wool with that dye. And so the question is as follows. Do we say the improvement of the dye is upon the wool, meaning to say the dye actually is present in front of us? So he can say to him, Havli samnoi te gaboch, give me back my dye. You have my dye. He says to that person who owns the wool, you have to give it back to me. O Dilmor, maybe maybe the improvement of the dye is not considered to be present on the wool. So that person can say back to him, I don't have anything of yours by me. And Rashi explains, again, that tzemer belongs to one person, the dye belongs to another. And Rashi says, according to this, we're not asking it in terms of a gazlan. It has nothing to do with stealing. The ein kan gezel, it's not a case of stealing, it's just a situation of, does this person have the other person's dye? Does he need to return it? And the Gemara continues, Tashma, coming here the following proof from a Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Beged shetzavu beklipe orla. If you have a garment that is dyed with the peels of fruit of orla, the fruit of orla is asur b'hana, you can't get any benefit. So yidalik, so that has to be burned. So apparently this is a problem of orla. We don't say that it's as if the dye has disappeared, that it is no longer. Alma chazusa milsi, you see that the appearance of the garment is considered substantial. And the Gemara says to that, Amar Rava says, Hanoah hanira lo einayim. When it comes to orla, it's an exception, because any kind of benefit, even benefit that's a visible kind of benefit, a change in appearance, asra Torah, even that the Torah forbids. The Tanya, as we learned in a Braisa, Reilam lo yachil talks about orla, and it says that the idea of achila, you can't eat it. Ein li alo isra achila. Now I only know that there's an isra to eat it. Minayin shelo yehenna mimenu v'lo yitzva bo v'lo yadlik bo esaner. How do we know you can't derive benefit? You can't use it to dye with. You can't use it to light a candle. Talmud Lomer, the pasuk says, "Va'araltam orla so espirio arelim lo yeachil." It says it various times in the pasuk, and therefore l'rabo says kulam. We understand to include all of these various prohibitions when it comes to orla. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, coming here the following proof: Beged shetzavo beklipe shvius. If you have a garment that was dyed with the peels of shvius, yidolik, again, it has to be burned. And so again we see that the appearance is considered to be something significant. And the Gemara says to that, Shani Hasam, it's different over there. The Yomar Kra, because when it talks about shvius, the pasuk says tihiyeh. The pasuk says the word tihiyeh b'havayasa tehei, meaning it remains in the same state, even though it's changed forms. In this case, it's been used in order to dye a garment. It still has the same prohibition. And Rashi explains, Beklipe orla means klipe agozim, it means the peels of nuts, oshar peiros, or other fruits that you can use for dyeing. Aval klipas ha'etzlo, now we're not talking about the peel of actual wood of orla, de'ein orla ela bepeiros, because the halacha of orla, says Rashi, applies specifically by fruits, it does not apply to wood. Hanira lo'enayim, again, it's visible, it's an appearance. Marabi alma, it's just the appearance. Aval pi she'ein bo mamish, even though it's not something substantial, could go ner, for example, a candle, vitzeva, or dye, and means to say that we learn that from the pasuk, that also is considered to be problematic when it comes to orla. And finally, at a brayse about shvius, Rashi explains shvius asur lasos sechora bepeiros, that when it comes to the fruit of the Shemitah year, it's asur to do business with those fruits. Again, uklipe peiros kamar, we're talking about the peels of fruits. Velo klipe eitzim, we're not talking about the peels of wood. The eitzim ein shvius chola alein, because when it comes to wood, the halachas of Shemitah don't apply. Kedela kamon, like we're going to say later on, the stam eitzim lahasaka nitnu, because wood in general is made to be burned. And the point over here is that if you're dyeing the beged with klipe shvius, Rashi understands that that's included in the prohibition of schora. Rashi will continue to make this point as we continue in the sugya. We will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Kof Aleph Amud Beis.